predictions. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. 15-1 last week. I remember when the Packers went 15-1, and now I'm sad again. Grossi, and today we are going to be predicting every single game in Week 14 of the 2024-2025 NFL season. This is the final week with bye weeks. After this, it is a full slate of games until the end of the regular season. And like I said last week, I went 15-1. One of my best records ever in predictions. And I know a lot of you had a ton of success. These were the games I got right. This was the one game I got wrong. I didn't believe in the Philadelphia Eagles. And now Eagles fans are all in my mentions saying, Tom, you should have believed. I should have, which brings me to a total of 129-67 for the year for predictions. However, there are many who are doing much better than I, and still the reigning, defending number one spot goes to Best Better with a record of 146-49. Well done, Best Better, continuing to lead the pack. Let's see if anybody can take that top spot, and let's get into these games. Starting off with Thursday Night Football. You got the Green Bay mother-loving Packers taking on the Detroit Lions. This game should be frackin' phenomenal. I know that I have been looking forward to this game ever since the first matchup between the Packers and the Lions earlier this season, hoping the Packers could get their revenge. After last year, Detroit came into Green Bay and kicked our ass. We then went into Detroit on Thanksgiving and beat them down. I'm hoping for a similar result here. And listen, I'm not going to lie. I know I'm a Packers fan, but I got a good feeling about this one. And there's only one reason why.
The most magical time of the season to me is Toyotathon.
That's right. Toyotathon gives Jordan Love secret powers, and I will not hear otherwise known as logic, because the Packers, they have a ton of momentum these past couple of weeks. The last 2 weeks, Jordan Love has not thrown a single interception. The defense is getting takeaways. Josh Jacobs has been crushing it on the ground, and the Packers are looking really damn good as we head further into December. Taking a look at what Josh Jacobs has done this season, it's not necessarily the touchdowns, but the rushing yardage. And just the ability to give him the rock 25 or 30 times is really, really important for this balanced offense. As I mentioned, Jordan Love's been playing mistake-free football these past couple of weeks, and they're going to have to do that against the Detroit Lions. And one of the reasons why I'm confident in the Packers this week is because the Lions, good God, man, they got everybody and their mother on IR, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They are hurting right now. They're signing Jamal Adams to play linebacker, which, again, I said this in power rankings, is never really a great sign. And the Lions are still a very good team, and I know that Ford Field is going to be insane on Thursday night. And while there was optimism earlier this week as both Romeo Doubs and Jair Alexander were practicing, it was announced today that Jair Alexander, Romeo Doubs, and Edgerrin Cooper would not play against the Detroit Lions on Thursday night, so the Packers will have to find a way to win without them once again. But overall, taking a look at where these two teams are meeting in December, I like the Packers to get the win here, talking about the momentum, talking about the way their defense has been playing, and of course, Jordan Love playing some mistake-free football, going up against a decimated defense. I like the Packers' chances here. Of course, the Packers are going to have to stop that ground game, which is going to be a challenge, but if the Packers are able to get after Jared Goff, because that pass rush has been better these past couple weeks, I think the Packers should be able to escape Detroit with a big-time win, beating the Lions and getting one step closer to the postseason. And so because of that, Packers get the win, and Lions will be eating your kneecaps tomorrow night.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
Following that, you got an AFC South showdown between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans. The Jaguars in a losing effort against the Houston Texans last week. And after Trevor Lawrence suffered that hit, the entire Jaguars squad had his back because Jaguars fans and their players would do anything for Trevor Lawrence.
I don't care what happens. I don't care if we kill someone.
What?
And the Jaguars, it has been a very disappointing season, obviously, in Jacksonville. Looking at coaching, looking at Trent Baalke, who has needed to go for quite some time, it has just led to a very unsatisfactory season. The offense was never able really to get going, and of course, injuries to Trevor Lawrence did not help that. The defense did not look as good as many people anticipated it to be, and unfortunately, that has left them with a losing record. Taking on the Tennessee Titans, talking about disappointing, I know that expectations and hopes weren't really high for Tennessee, but even for them, it's been a pretty sad season. Unfortunately for them too, Will Levis has actually looked pretty damn good, and he looked good this past Sunday. It was the defense that let them down. I know their special teams has been hot frickin' frackin' garbage this past season, and that hasn't helped, but it seems like maybe if that offense can start to figure things out, or Will Levis could be that guy, maybe they're gonna have that foundation to build for the future. I'm actually gonna go with the Tennessee Titans to get a win here. I know that there was some optimism that maybe they could knock off the Commanders last week, but Wildflower said no. I think this Titans team should be able to get a big divisional win. Again, it's not really going to help either of their seasons, but morale matters, I guess, at this point in December. So I'm going to go with Tennessee to get this win. And Jaguars fans, it's almost over. And breaking news, it was announced that the Jaguars will place Trevor Lawrence on IR, which will effectively end his season this year. A devastating blow for the Jaguars and just another disappointment on what has been a very upsetting season for Jacksonville. Then an AFC East showdown, you got the New Jersey Jets taking on the Miami Dolphins. Oh boy, talk about sad teams. The Jets, it is just getting worse and worse. And they had opportunities to win last week against the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks special teams was like, here you go, Aaron Rodgers, get the win. And the Jets said, no, thank you, I'm good. And talking about expectations this year, for the Jets, they were sky high. I thought they were going to win the division because, hey, Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to elevate that team and make them better than when they had Zach Wilson, right? Apparently wrong. That team is just a bad football team. They can't get it together. And while you did see some flashes with Devontae Adams and Rodgers last week, it was not enough to bring them the victory. They're going to be taking on the Miami Dolphins, who had a disappointing loss this past Thursday night on Thanksgiving against the Green Bay mother-loving Packers. And honestly, the Dolphins were probably already cold before they got to Green Bay.
We're there.
And the Dolphins still have a slight shot to make the postseason, but they're going to have to win out the majority, if not all, of the remaining games, and that's going to be difficult. Their offense definitely has looked better with Tua, and I know the narrative of can't win in the cold, that wasn't disproven last week, but Tua was not the issue there. It was the defense that really didn't support him whatsoever. They really didn't have a ground attack at all, and at the end of the day, they were unsuccessful in beating the Packers. This being played in Miami, I'm actually going to give the edge to the Dolphins here. And the Jets, I know they're still going to be playing hard. Aaron Rodgers is still going to be starting, but they just don't inspire a lot of confidence. And the Dolphins, they are playing for their playoff lives, even though those chances are pretty slim right now. I'm going to go with Miami to get a big home win against a division rival here. The Jets fall further into depression, and Dolphins, the optimism is alive for one more week. Let's see how long you can hold on to it. Dolphins, they get the W. Then a revenge game is up. We got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Minnesota Vikings. The Falcons. Oh, Lord. Kirk Cousins throwing all the interceptions last week against the Chargers in a very ugly game, and the Falcons are in a very awkward position right now. They have, of course, drafted Michael Penix earlier this year, and a lot of people ridiculed him for it because they just gave Kirk Cousins $100 million, and here we are now. The Falcons are fighting for their playoff lives, can still win the division, and I don't think anybody has a lot of faith in them because Kirk Cousins is not playing well. And the most infuriating part, the Falcons defense actually played well last week. They're going to be taking on the Minnesota Vikings, who were able to barely escape against the Arizona Cardinals. Aaron Jones fumbling or dropping a touchdown, but then catching a game-winning touchdown. That was able to save their lives and get the Vikings to 10 wins. And here, the Vikings, they get their chance at some revenge on Kirk Cousins.
Ah, Kirk, my old friend.
friend. Revenge is a dish that is best served cold.
And ultimately, this being played in Minnesota, Kirk Cousins' homecoming, I don't think it's going to go very well for the Falcons. Like I said before, the Falcons just are uninspiring. While they do have a ton of talent on that team, I do worry about their defense being consistent. And with Kirk Cousins right now, I think everything is up in the air. And after it's up in the air, it's probably going to get intercepted. The Vikings are using their purple Satan magic to get wins here. I think that they'll use some Satan magic once again to get the W here. And so I got the Vikings getting a big time win, furthering their position and trying to get into the postseason and also vying for the top spot in the NFC North. But I got the Vikings winning, and Cousins, I don't like that. Following that, you got, oh God, whatever this is going to be, you got the New Orleans Saints taking on the New Jersey Giants. Our tickets going for $8. The Saints having their first loss under interim head coach, the Rizzy, unable to get the W. And honestly, for the Saints, I am just so damn sorry. To go back to where we started this season, and you had back-to-back weeks, they're putting up 40-plus points, to now, it's been pretty damn depressing. And considering they've lost Shaheed, then Olave, now Taysom Hill has torn his ACL, Saints, you just can't catch a break.
You took everything from me.
I don't even know who you are.
The good news is they're going up against an equally terrible team in the New Jersey Giants, who, listen, they played at least somewhat competitive against the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Drew Lock got the start as Tommy DeVito was injured, but they allowed Rico Dowdle to have his best game of the season, and their defense has been very disappointing considering what it could have been. Their defensive line is probably the best part about that team, and I do like Tracy as a running back on the offensive side of things, but the Giants are just a pitiful team this year. I don't really have high expectations for this game, nor either of these teams, and it's honestly a coin flip to see which team is going to be worse. With all the injuries the Saints have, which is how poorly the Giants are playing, this could go either way. And originally, I was leaning towards the Giants being played at home. Maybe they can win in a low-scoring affair, but I'm actually going to go with the Saints here. Because while they did lose this past Sunday, they played pretty damn well the past 2 weeks. I know Taysom Hill was a big part of that 1 week that he had 3 touchdowns. But I think Derek Carr should be able to do enough to move the ball on this Giants defense because, hey, anybody can. So I'm going to go with the Saints to get a win, regardless of how beaten up they are. And Giants, one step closer to locking up that #1 pick in the draft. Following that, you got the Carolina Panthers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Panthers, woo! They've been surprising these past 3 weeks because of how well Bryce Young has been playing, and it's been really fun to watch. Not only is Bryce Young seeming to find a groove here in the NFL, but things are also going well on the coaching side of things because Dave Canales was so close to getting a win against his former team.
I told you, Dave, I never lose.
And although it was a losing effort, there's a lot to be excited about with Carolina if Canales and Bryce Young are the guys there. They, of course, are going to be able to rebuild through the draft, and the fact that they actually have their draft pick this year is incredibly helpful. And while I don't think that they're going to be playoff bound within the next season, I think that you can have that foundation, and if you have your franchise QB in Bryce Young, that makes your job significantly easier. They're going to be taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who are playing like the best team in football right now. They're on an 8-game winning streak. Their defense is just shutting down opponents. On top of that, Saquon Barkley, he's vying for an MVP title this year, and it seems like the Eagles cannot be stopped. On top of that, this being played in Philadelphia, while the Panthers have been playing better and they might make this a little bit competitive, I just believe the Eagles will be able to get this W. Like I said before, it's going to be tough to stop the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a couple of games coming up that I think will be very tough, and I'll be curious to see if they're going to be able to capture that #1 seed. But right now, I got Philadelphia getting a big home win within the NFC, and the Eagles, they keep on flying. Then, the rematch that not many of us have been waiting for. You got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Browns involved in a Monday Night Football showdown with the Denver Broncos. Things going back and forth. Jameis Winston throwing 2 pick sixes and then throwing another interception to end the game. But hey, we had life on offense. Jerry Jeudy having over 200 yards in that game. And while the defense kind of just threw up their hands and said, "What defense?" I think it was really exciting just to see that Browns offense start to click. And hey, maybe Deshaun Watson was the problem, said everyone ever. But overall, it's been a pretty disappointing season for the Browns as there were high expectations. And at this point, after already beating the Steelers, honestly, Browns fans, they just got to hope for one thing. Let it snow, baby. They're going to be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Steelers, they had a big-time win over another divisional opponent, the Cincinnati Bengals, this past week. You had Russell Wilson throwing for over 400 yards. The defense played pretty well. I mean, you could do everything you can to stop Joe Burrow. But Russell Wilson having all these touchdowns, the offense exploding. I didn't even know they could score over 40 points. And that trends very well as the Steelers are looking to lock up their playoff position and potentially go for that divisional title as well. They're going to have their hands full with Cleveland because, listen, this is AFC North football. And any single time that teams from this division play, it's either going to be the most highest scoring game ever, like you see with the Ravens and the Bengals or the Steelers and the Bengals, or it's going to be the lowest scoring game ever, and it's going to be ugly as hell. I imagine this game is going to be pretty damn ugly. The Browns were able to sneak one away from them a couple of weeks ago. I got the Steelers getting the win here. Again, you could throw things out the window because it is within the division, and it's the AFC North, but I think the Steelers will do enough at home to get the W here. We'll see if that Browns offense can be as explosive as it was against the Broncos. However, Levi Wallace will not be playing for the Steelers because they got rid of him, and I imagine the Steelers secondary will not be as forgiving as the Broncos were on Monday night. So I got them getting a big win. We'll see how Russ plays, but Steelers country, let's weld. Then you got the Battle of the Pirates. You got the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Absolute heartbreak for the Raiders on the Black Friday game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Aiden O'Connell played pretty damn well, got his team into position to try and win that football game, and unfortunately was not ready for the snap as it hit him in the chest, resulting in a fumble. And ultimately, the Chiefs winning that game. And you talk about the Raiders, and maybe there's some hope for AOC, but you have to imagine they're going to be drafting their franchise QB come April. But looking at their offense, it has been anemic this year. However, there's been one very, very bright spot, and that is Brock Bowers, who has been playing his ass off. He is setting records. And as a rookie, to be as dominant as he has been this season, it's really fun to watch. And unfortunately, being on the Raiders, he's just not getting a ton of press about it. They're going to be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who took the game into overtime with the Carolina Panthers, but thankfully were able to escape with a win. Baker Mayfield got banged up in that game, wound up returning, and if it wasn't for a mistake from the Panthers, they may have lost that game. And the Buccaneers right now, they're still in the race for that division in the NFC South. But first, they got to fend off some Raiders. Stop blowing holes in my ship! And while this could be a little bit of a closer game than some people anticipate, I do have the Buccaneers getting the win here. I talked about this ad nauseum the past few weeks. I just do not believe in the Falcons right now, and their lack of consistency is infuriating. And taking a look at the Saints with all those injuries, especially Taysom Hill now, I don't think they have a shot. So if there is a time for the Buccaneers to try and get the South, it is now. They're going to need to basically win out and need the Falcons to lose a couple games for them to be able to capture the NFC South. It is very, very possible. I think it starts with a win here over the Raiders. And Buccaneers, you just got to hope that Baker is going to bake some good cookies. Oh boy. Then you got one of the most important divisional matchups of the weekend. You got the rematch. The Seattle Seahawks taking on the Arizona Cardinals. The Seahawks, oh man, what a game against the Jets. The announcer saying that game was inebriated hit the nail right on the head. Special teams coughing it up, doing an awful job in everything they possibly can to make the Seahawks lose that game. And the only reason why the Seahawks are still leading that division is in thanks to Leonard Williams.
We stand here amidst my achievement, not yours!
Because that defense and Leonard Williams, they showed up. And while the Seahawks were able to escape with the win over the Jets, they have a big-time game against this Arizona Cardinals team, and this could wind up deciding who wins the NFC West. The Cardinals, unfortunately suffering heartbreak at the hands of the purple incarnation of Satan, the Minnesota Vikings last week, whether it was the conservative play calling and deciding to elect to kick a field goal, or just the fact that they haven't really looked the same since the bye. It's a little bit disappointing for the Cardinals right now, who have been my dark horse worst teams since the offseason. And looking at this game, the Cardinals need to get a win here if they want to win that division, which is just a mess right now. And I think the Cardinals are going to be able to do that. The one strong point from the Seahawks has been that defense over recent weeks, and I think that is going to give Kyler Murray and James Conner a tough time. Trey McBride's going to continue to crush as he has been on a tear this season and arguably the most consistent player on that offense. And while the Seahawks were able to get a win at home when they previously met a couple weeks ago, I'm going to go with the Cardinals to get the win here. I think these two teams are pretty evenly matched, and while the Seahawks were able to run away with it in their last matchup, I think the Cardinals will be a bit more competitive playing at home, and if they're able to get after Geno Smith, I know their pass rush isn't anything to write home about, I think they should be able to win this game. I will say I'm not very confident in this pick because I think if that Seahawks defense can dominate and they can limit Kyler Murray, they will be able to get the W here, but I'm going to go with the Cardinals playing for their playoff lives here at home. Kyler Murray, show me something good, be able to escape the pressure, and if they're able to establish that run game, Arizona gets a big win. I'm putting my faith in you, Cardinals. Don't let me down. Then we got the Buffalo Bills taking on the LA Rams. The Bills clinching the AFC East for the 5th year in a row, proving all the haters wrong. And at this point, it just seems like Josh Allen is just doing something amazing every week.
Oh, man. That was totally wicked!
And the Bills, they are in great position because not only did they clinch their division, but they're in a great spot to potentially capture that 1 seed. They just need the Chiefs to lose a game or two, and oh boy, they're right back into it. And the Bills, they don't have the easiest of schedules remaining. They have to go against some divisional rivals, and they're also going against the Detroit Lions coming up, which should be a phenomenal game. And this week, they are going to be playing against the LA Rams. And the Rams, they're an interesting football team. Jared Verse has been phenomenal on that defense, and he is having a really nice rookie year. And last week, they were able to establish the run with Kyren Williams, and Matthew Stafford had a clean game. And it really was a tale of two halves, because that first half, they were shut out on offense, and that second half looked much better. And this could be a pretty damn competitive game. The Bills are starting to get healthy at the right time. Milano coming back. We'll see if Coleman's going to be playing in this game. But ultimately, the Bills, they are looking like one of, if not the best team in football right now. So I think they should be able to take down the Rams because I just don't think the Rams have been consistent enough this year. I do worry about that offensive line a little bit. And if they're able to get pressure against Matthew Stafford, Buffalo should be able to get a W. But don't underestimate some AFC, NFC shenanigans here. So it might wind up being a close game, and Matthew Stafford is a very capable quarterback, but I'm going to go with Buffalo to continue their win streak, continue their dominance, and hey, maybe, just maybe, it is Buffalo all the way this time. Following that, oh boy, can they both lose? We got the Chicago Bears taking on the San Francisco 49ers. The Bears, every week, are finding more heartbreaking ways to lose than the last. Whether it was a blocked field goal against the Packers, whether it was going into overtime with the Vikings, whether it was not calling a timeout on Thanksgiving when they could have beaten the freaking Lions. It has been a frustrating season for the Chicago Bears here. And listen, they fired Matt Eberflus, so you had a nice Thanksgiving at least. And the last few coaching hires, they've been so bad, I think Bears fans would take back Lovie Smith at this point.
I didn't mean it. If you come back, I'll never be a pain in the butt again. I promise.
So here we go again, Bears. You fired your head coach again. You fired your offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron. You're elevating wide receiver coaches, your offensive coordinators now, and the Bears, they're just a mess. And the problem is Caleb Williams, besides taking a few sacks that he shouldn't, or also not calling a timeout, has been pretty damn good these past few weeks. And that's been the most frustrating thing. Actually, the Bears' defense has been what's kind of failing them these past 3 weeks, at least against their divisional rivals. They're going to be taking on the San Francisco 49ers, who, good God, they are beat to hell. Jordan Mason and CMC going on IR. You won't see them the rest of the year. And they have just been decimated by injuries this year. And talking about expectations, one of the more disappointing teams of the year. And while this is being played in Santa Clara, and I know that I shouldn't pick the Bears because they have lost 6 straight games, I am actually going to go with Chicago to get the win here. Brock Purdy did return against the Bills. However, that offense just looked all out of sorts. And considering their RB1 is going to be Guerrero, who is very capable, we've seen him play before, I just don't think the 49ers have enough firepower to beat this Bears team right now. And I know that might be blasphemous and this might blow up in my face, but I'm going to go with Chicago to get a win here, halting their losing streak. They get their fire Eberflus bonus, and so because of that, I think Chicago's going to get the W. And 49ers, Yeah, that Super Bowl hangover hit you like a truck. Then on Sunday Night Football, an AFC West showdown, you got the LA Chargers taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers, oh boy, that was an ugly game against the Atlanta Falcons. And one of the main reasons they won that game is because Kirk Cousins couldn't stop throwing interceptions. And the Chargers are in a pretty rough spot right now because while I do think they are a good football team, not having J.K. Dobbins definitely makes a huge difference. Gus Edwards was really ineffective against that Falcons defense. And here, if they're not able to establish the run against the Chiefs, it might be tough times ahead. Speaking of the Chiefs, you just knew there was going to be some Chiefs magic on Black Friday.
Have you forgotten the laws upon which Narnia was built?
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Because they got away with one, defeating the Vegas Raiders on that Black Friday football game. And listen, the Chiefs, they have not looked like themselves the entire season. However, help is on the way. They will be getting Hollywood Brown back, Pacheco back for another week, should look a little bit better. And being played in Arrowhead, I think this is the Chiefs' game to lose. Talking about the Chiefs against their divisional opponents, they've come down to the wire, and I imagine this game will be pretty damn close too. And I imagine if J.K. Dobbins was here, I'd be a little bit more inclined to pick the Chargers to get the W. But if it just comes down to Justin Herbert, who I love as a quarterback, I don't know if they have enough receiving threats to make a difference against that Chiefs secondary. However, that Chiefs pass rush as of late has been lacking, so maybe Justin Herbert's going to have a bit of time. And if Bosa can have a nice game and get after Patrick Mahomes and take advantage of that left tackle situation, maybe the Chargers are going to be able to sneak away with a W. But being played at Arrowhead, and on top of that, not having Dobbins, I have to go with the Chiefs here to get a big-time win. They already clinched their playoff spot last week, so I imagine their reign of terror will continue. And with a win, they would win the AFC West, and we all know where that's going, on the path to another three-peat. God help us all. And finally, on Monday Night Football, you got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Dallas Cowboys. The Bengals involved in a shootout with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it is just heartbreaking to watch Joe Burrow have a phenomenal season and his defense just let him down time after time after time. And listen, the protection's not great, the defense is not great, but the Bengals are still a fun team to watch. With Chase Brown, they've rediscovered their run game, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, it's just so frustrating because we're not going to be able to watch that offense in the playoffs because the other side of the ball is so damn bad. They're going to be taking on the Dallas Cowboys, who actually had a big-time win on Thanksgiving. Rico Dowdle having a great game, having over 100 yards. Cooper Rush, as we know, is a very capable quarterback. Micah Parsons being an absolute monster on that defensive line. And this game, I think, is going to be really damn close. Micah Parsons was wreaking havoc on Drew Lock on Thursday, and I imagine against this offensive line, he's going to do the same exact thing against Joe Burrow. However, looking at the other side of things, I'm sure the Cowboys will be able to move the ball pretty well against this Bengals defense. And so it would make a lot of sense for the Dallas Cowboys to actually get the win here. However, if this does turn into a shootout and the offensive line can give the Bengals a little bit more time, I do think there are so many weapons that the Bengals have. They should be able to put up points against this Cowboys defense, who has been lacking as of this year. And so because of that, I am actually going to go with the kitty to get a W here for the Simpsons game on Monday Night Football. I think it will be a close game. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys were able to get a win at home. But I believe in Joe Burrow a little bit too much. And I think that defense for the Bengals, while very bad, should do enough to at least slow down Cooper Rush and Rico Dowdle enough. And so because of that, kitty goes meow. They get the W. And as for the Cowboys, listen, McCarthy just needs one more chance from Jerry.
I need this job. I need this job. I really need this job. I need this fucking job!
Please re-sign him. Bengals win. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you see these games shaking out this week? It's the final bye week. And so after this, it's a sprint to the postseason. Let me know. You know, I find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media, see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.